Olá, eu sou o Felipe Cruz, repórter de música aqui da revista VEJA, e eu conversei com Geddy Lee, baixista do Rush, que lança nessa semana pela editora Belas Letras sua autobiografia. No livro ele fala sobre os pais sobreviventes do Holocausto, fala também sobre um possível retorno aos palcos, até com Alex, né, depois da morte do Neil Peart, né, o baterista. Confere aí os melhores momentos, que ficou muito legal.
You know, obviously there was a complex set of feelings that followed after Neil's passing, and it wasn't just that he had passed away. It was that for 3.5 years, we had been dealing with his illness. So these things really bring you closer together as people and also weigh heavily on your heart. So when he eventually did pass away in January 2020, it was hard for me to think about just picking up an instrument and start to sing. That didn't feel right to me. I didn't really have any heart for music. So fortunately, I found something to do during the pandemic, which was writing. And that filled a gap for me in terms of it was a challenge, and I was challenging my memory and testing my skills as a writer and learning about writing. And so I found that quite satisfying, but it took much longer than I expected. And of course, anything to do with music was the farthest thing from my mind at that time. But since Alex and I have gotten together last year for the Taylor Hawkins tributes and the little show we did with Primus for South Park, I realized that those songs are still part of me, and I don't have a problem to play those songs again, but I have to find the right place and time if that would ever happen. And I'm not sure that that's what I want to do next. I have great interest to continue to play in some form, and I probably will sooner or later do something musically. And I would like to go back on the road and play live again at some point, but I'm not sure whether that will be with Alex or whether that will be on my own. Those are things that I'm still pondering at this moment.
What do you thought when you played the last show, when Neil said to send the equipment to Los Angeles? So that moment you realized that last show. So what do you thought in that moment?
Well, I was very disappointed. I was really excited about that tour. I was really proud of it because I thought we were playing really well. And I loved how the design of the show had come together, and all these ideas that we had were working, and it was just a beautiful thing. So I wanted to play everywhere. I wanted to take it all around the world, but it wasn't meant to be. And I still held out hope towards the end that he would change his mind maybe, or after a few weeks off that he would say, okay guys, let's go back out and do some more shows. But when I heard that he wanted to send his case home, his dressing room case, I knew that was it. And that was very hard for me because I was resentful that someone else's decision was affecting what I wanted to do.
Okay.
But I had no choice because I had to respect his decision. And we were always a democracy. And we always said, if all three don't want to do something, we don't do it. So you can't have it both ways. You have to accept the good with the bad. And so when the tour ended, I was sad. I was frustrated, but there was nothing I could do about it. So my wife and I went walking. And that was how I tried to process it. And unfortunately, you know, within a year, we learned of his illness. And in that moment, nothing else mattered. And any resentment I had disappeared in a moment. And now it was time to be there for him and try to help him and his family in any way we could, which was very hard.
And the people saw, I think Rush was a band, a more correct band with no drugs, you know, more straight band. But in the book, you told that is not exactly true. It was taken up, you're talking about drugs and stuff like that. So how was the influence of this drugs and alcohol in the band?
Well, we were children of the 60s. We were raised in a drug culture. So obviously our songs are some of our songs are clearly about smoking marijuana.
Yes, yes.
Passage to Bangkok, hello. You know, so I don't know why people are surprised about that. But yeah, of course, we were, as youngsters, we experimented with all kinds of things. That was part of being young, right? But I think the difference is we did not allow ourselves to be victim of those experiments. And we knew what we loved to do. What we loved to do is be musicians. And we would never let any of these parties or experiments or whatever you want to call them interfere with our performance. We would never let them interfere with our ways of making records. Well, one time we did, maybe with Caress of Steel, but we learned our lesson with Caress of Steel is not to be too high when you're making a record, or the record might come out really weird. So, so I think we had the presence of mind, I think, and the sense of being a professional to control those substances and to keep them as purely recreation, not interfere with our functionality.
Another part of the book that really touched me, it's in the beginning of the book when you're talking about your grandparents in Poland. And my question is, with the war in Israel, if you do have this feeling that this war never ended, is never healed, this feeling of what's happened.
It's a complicated question. You know, my parents' story and my grandparents' story, for me, it was important to retell, because if you are thinking of the idea of a memoir, if you're thinking of the idea of a story of someone's life, then the person reading the book needs to learn something about you and why you are the way you are. And I am the person I am as a result of so many experiences in my life, including what the atmosphere was in my home, the kind of stories we heard as I was a child, the suffering that my parents did during the war, and how fortunate they were to be survivors. And I wouldn't be here talking to you had they not survived. So I have to pay homage to that, to their strength and their ability to persevere through the worst possible circumstances. So for me, that's an homage to them, but it's also helps, I think, the reader of the book understand me and what kind of person I was as I went marching off into this crazy band that I spent over 45 years of my life in. So, you know, whether it relates to things that are happening today, I mean, unfortunately, we live in a very fucked up world. And there are many people out there that hate my people, and I can't control that. But I hope and pray that common sense will rule, and that we don't have to go through a similar period of hatred the way my parents did during World War II.
The real question is, are the best player human too?
That's what I'm trying to find out.
And I laugh aloud when you discovered the fans discovered the Rush by TV show MacGyver, because the opening song is Tom Sawyer. Because for me, it's how I discovered Rush in the 80s, in the 90s.
That struck me as very funny, because I had no idea at the time that our music was even being used for that. So that was a big surprise for me, and a good story, I think.
It's cool because Tom Sawyer, talking about Tom Sawyer, and MacGyver, it's like a modern Tom Sawyer. I don't know, we made a bomb with a clip and a banana.
That's pretty funny. A different kind of modern age warrior, right?
E esse foi o Veja Pop dessa semana, e até a próxima.